Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Black British Parents Podcast. And today we have a legend in the building, Tony Warner. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and joining us today.
No problem.
How you doing?
I'm cool, thank you.
Awesome. Please, for some of our listeners who may not know who you are and what you do, please let them know.
All right, my name's Tony Warner. I'm from a group called Black History Walks. We organize walks, talks, and films on the Black history of London every single month each year for the last 18 years. And we have like 25 different walking tours. You can have a Black history walk in Mayfair or Hackney, Trafalgar Square, Soho, Regent's Canal. We've got walks everywhere. And apart from doing the walking tours, we also have a Black History bus tour, which drives around London. It's actually a luxury double-decker coach, right? But we drive around London and we show people the history from a bus perspective. Then we have a Black History river cruise on the River Thames. It goes from Temple to Vauxhall to Greenwich and back. And we show people the history from a river perspective. And we have a bit of a dance and some music on the return trip. We also introduce a Black History canal cruise where you where we sail around the back of King's Cross, looking at the Black history on Regent's Canal. We also have a helicopter tour, which flies about 1,000 feet above London, and we show you the Black history from the air, which is really interesting. And we just introduced a Black History steam train tour, which will be launching in about 3 months' time, whereby you'll be on a steam train, go into the countryside with some narration about the Black history from the steam perspective. So we do that, and then also we show films. So we show films roughly once a month for the last 17 years on different topics. It could be To St. Louverture, it could be Black British Civil Rights, could be Frantz Fanon, could be Deaths in Custody. So we show films once a month as well. And we try to make them and we add on a Q&A too. So we show the film plus have a Q&A as well. And we're also involved in, fundraising for plaques. So because we do walking tours, we know where a lot of these kind of historic sites are. So once we know where a certain location is that a historic event happened, we will try and raise funds to actually put up a Nubian Jack blue plaque to recognize that history. We've done about 10 so far. We got like 3 more in the pipeline.
These are blue plaques.
Yeah, these are blue plaques, yeah. And also we got a couple of books out. In fact, one of our walking tours in Notting Hill has been made into a GCSE exam textbook from Pearson.
Awesome.
So we took the actual walking tour. Yeah, it's never been done before ever, as far as I'm aware, to have a walking tour become an exam textbook, but we've done it, and it's now used in schools by about 15,000 pupils across the nation. And it includes things in it like the sus law, police brutality, partner, Boksan Susu, what's the other stuff that's in there? Music, food, the Black Panthers in Notting Hill. It's a bunch of stuff that was never in there before. And also we have another book called Black History Walks. So that's what we do in a nutshell.
That's a very big nutshell, a very big nut. Thank you so much for sharing this. But before we go any further, can you please, just a little icebreaker, please can you tell us what your all-time favorite movie is?
Oh, all-time favorite movie? Shoot.
Or top 3 at least.
All right, well, one movie I like is a movie called Last Mohicans with Daniel Day-Lewis, because it's like a serious kind of adventure, drama, love story. I was always impressed by that. Oh yeah, Besauro. Now that's not a well-known title, but it's a film. It's based on a true story of this black man, this African guy from Angola, who was taken from Angola to a place we call Brazil now, right? And he used his martial arts, is what they call capoeira now, that comes out of Southern Africa to fight for justice. So Besauro is one of my favorite films ever, because it's just such an amazing true story, and it links into empire, resistance, spirituality, martial arts, is all there, right? So I got, Last Mohicans, Besauro, and the other one, number 3, what would number 3 be? Another film that I really like to... Oh, Yuli, Y-U-L-I. It's a story of a guy called Carlos Acosta, a Cuban ballet dancer who grew up in poverty. He never wanted to dance in the first place. His dad had to beat him to make him go to dance school. He wanted to go and play football and eat mangoes, but his dad would beat him to go to dance school. And then one day, he saw a guy who looked like him on stage doing ballet, and it just switched his life around. He then became one of the best ballet dancers in the world, and right now he's the director of the Royal Ballet up in Birmingham. Badman film, and that's just amazing film to watch. It's fantastic.
Thank you. I think the last two I definitely want to see. I've heard about the second one. Was it Besauro?
Besauro, yeah.
Yeah, I want to see Capoeira's. I love Capoeira, but yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, welcome. For those who don't necessarily know much about your work, how would you best describe what you do and why you do it?
How would I best describe what I do and why I do it? Now, excuse me, if I start with why first, at least for the walking tours, yeah, I've done a whole bunch of the typical London walking tours, like, Jack the Ripper, Charles Dickens, Underground Beatles tour. It was like, I've done all of them, yeah, when I first came to London, right, because I'm from Yorkshire. And when I got here, I did all these walks, and there was never no mention of black people on these walks. And I thought we must have done something. Not after all this time, we must have done something somewhere. And after kind of complaining for a long period of time and nothing happened, I thought, well, let me just do my own thing. And that was when I began doing the walking tours. The first one, anyway, was within the St. Paul's Bank here. Now we got like 21. But the other thing that I do is show films. Now, the way I got into showing films is that I used to be a youth mentor with a charity called 100 Black Men, right? So we would meet, I think it was every 2 weeks, up in the Marcus Garvey Leisure Centre in Tottenham. And we'd go take the boys through, it was self-esteem, peer pressure, communication skills, how to kind of, be a man sort of thing. And there was, I would do a bit of history in there as well. So I do a little bit of history in there, in that you'd ask the boys, what did they know about, their history? And they had no clue. But they had a lot of stereotypical views of black people. So they thought Jamaicans were drug dealers, they thought Nigerians ate bushmeat. It was just really stereotypical and quite negative. And they didn't know who Marcus Garvey was, and in the Marcus Garvey Leisure Centre, yeah? So it's like, what can I do to kind of address this?
Yeah.
So it was, I knew that showing films could have an instant impact on people because I'd done it before in another kind of situation. So I thought, let me try and show some films, black films, conscious films, positive films, educational films, to kind of, uplift their consciousness. And then, like, the center did not have a TV. It didn't have no TV inside there that worked anywhere. And I'm talking about, like, 2001, 2. So TVs are like this, big and heavy, yeah? So I went to try and rent one, but I couldn't get attacked. It was a long story short. I thought, this is too much hassle. Let me just hire a cinema, right? So I hired the Rio Cinema, a 400-seat cinema. And I said, well, it wasn't me who said it. It was going to be for free, yeah? But Ken Barnes, who was the director of the 100 Black Men, said, listen, let's do a little thing. Let's make it free if they bring a child, right? So it was free, but you had to bring a child, right? So pack the place out now. People was there.
That's awesome.
It was a cool thing. People, and the film that we showed, excuse me, was a film starring Angela Bassett. It was called The Rosa Parks Story. And the reason I got that film was a guy called Charles Thompson, who's a black film producer, director, etc. He was showing films back at that time. I was totally new. I had no clue, but I knew him. So he helped me up. He gave me the film to show. I showed it at the Rio Cinema. We had a packed out full house, and people loved it. There was this intergenerational learning. They liked the film. We had a bit of a Q&A afterwards. And then they asked me, when's the next one? When's the next one? And I was like, what? I didn't really plan for the next one. But that then led to this kind of continuation of the film show. And that was... So I've been showing films before I was doing the walks. So I've been showing films since like at least 2001. And the thing is that for the first one, like I say, I hired the cinema. I used my own money to hire it, yeah? And I did that a few times and I couldn't afford it. So after a while, I thought, let me see if I can get sponsorship from some other venue rather than people because I couldn't afford it. So then I began to approach museums like Museum of London, Museum of Docklands, the Imperial War Museum, and say, look, your cinema's empty on this day, whatever, on a weekend, because normally if you go there, it's empty on the weekend. How about you let me use your cinema? I'll tell you what film to show, and I'll bring the crowd. So we did the Imperial War Museum, because I'd been there, I'd seen some films, they had the really good films, but the place was empty. They had a 200-seat cinema down there, and there was like, when I went to see a film, they had like 20 people in there, and I spoke to the guy. His name was Dr. Toby Haggif, and he said, yeah, let's do something. So I brought in, I think the first time we had like 100 people or so. He was freaking out. They never had that kind of numbers in there.
I didn't even know there was a cinema in there. I went to school opposite there.
Oh,
really? That's how deep it is. I went to Notre Dame Secondary School, so yeah.
Oh, that's around the corner.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, they got
and we went there a couple of times for like certain historic, parts of it, but I did not know there was a cinema in there.
Yeah,
so
it's still there now, I think.
Yeah.
So we would, program the events with the museum, and we'd pack out the venues regular. Sunday, 11 o'clock in Docklands, 150 people. They'd never seen it before. So that then led to this kind of this ongoing program. Ken called it Education Through Film. And that's how we began to show films. because of the 100 black men doing the youth mentoring up in Tottenham and the boys not knowing their history.
That's awesome, and thank you for being able to do that. I've always had this kind of thing about Black history because in school, having been growing up in South London, I went to obviously I said Notre Dame school. We didn't really learn anything about Black history, and whatever was considered Black history was about the transatlantic slave times, or we got told about Martin Luther King. Do you know what I mean? It was all African American history. It's not even until in my adult years and after I had children that I even knew enough about World War II and our impact and the works of Selena Carty and what she's doing with Black Poppy Rose.
Yeah.
So can you please, just give us a bit of insight on how important it is for us to know our Black British history and the contributions that we as Africans and Caribbeans have contributed?
It's absolutely crucial. I mean, World War II is a good example because World War II is on the curriculum. So everybody in the country learns about World War II, primary school and secondary school. So when I was doing stuff at the War Museum, right, I made sure to feature all the African and Caribbean contributions to the war because they actually have some films about it. But apart from the films they have in their basement there, I'd actually bring in speakers to talk about, this contribution, which was evidence documented, but was not that well known. We'd bring in guys like Ben Bousquet, Colin Douglas to speak about, West Indian women in World War II. Also, for example, Ben Bousquet, St. Lucian guy, bad man, yeah? He was serious. Listen, I learned a lot of stuff from him. Ben Bousquet is a serious daddy, yeah? When it comes to history, right? So he would talk to us about how the British were getting their oil from the Caribbean. During the war, British are getting oil from the Caribbean. They're getting oil from Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, and also Trinidad, because even now Trinidad has oil, right? So it's being supplied to the war effort via the Atlantic. So there's convoys coming across with oil from the Caribbean, right? Ain't no oil here, they're getting oil from the Caribbean. That's helping them to fight the war, right? So that's just the oil. They're also getting bauxite. Bauxite from Jamaica, Guyana, is used to make aircraft, right? You can't have an aircraft industry without bauxite at the time. It's just, because it's used to make aluminium, right? So they're getting bauxite. They're also getting sugar, of course. Now, think about how important sugar is even now to the kind of UK population when it comes to their food eating, their eating practices, etc. But during a war, you have a nice cup of tea with some sugar, you feel better. So the sugar was coming from the Caribbean too. That's just the Caribbean. If I go to Africa now, right, you have hundreds of thousands of African people either working in Africa to support the war effort or actually fighting. So in Burma, Malaya, you have regiments of Black people, African people, fighting for Britain during the war. But also, Africa's supplying us, I say us, the British with diamonds. There ain't no diamonds in England, right? So when it comes to producing certain types of war materials, you need diamonds. But also, think about espionage, think about kind of undercover stuff, right? You can't carry big sets of cash around, but you can carry a bottle of diamonds, and that's like worth 500,000 million pounds, whatever. So diamonds were used to actually produce raw materials during the war, but also to pay off debts and to kind of bribe people and to kind of pay spies. They're getting diamonds from South Africa, the Congo, etc. So that's all part of it as well. So, and that's just the diamonds, because we're also getting copper and cotton and rubber. Ain't no rubber in England, because during World War II, the Japanese take over Malaysia and Burma, which used to produce, or actually produce rubber. We, British, are getting their rubber from Uganda, right? And think about how useful rubber would be during a war. Tires, it's just, I mean, when you think about the contribution of Africa and the Caribbean to World War II, it's like, without the resources, you'd not been able to win the war. Britain would have been in a mess without the resources. And the resources are, I didn't mention gold. I forgot to mention gold, right? So gold again is used to pay off debts. So all that's coming from Africa. The French did the same thing. The French are also using a whole bunch of African troops from Senegal, Mali to fight in their wars for them. So you can't really conceive World War II without African and Caribbean. But when it's taught, all that stuff is left out for some weird, strange reason, which is why we would make sure to address it at the War Museum when we did our thing.
How was that received, sharing that information?
People loved it. People loved it. I mean, they were freaking out. Because apart from this resources, you had the individuals who were doing like Errol Barra, pilot, or navigator rather, in World War II, Flight Lieutenant John Ray Smythe. There's a bunch of real heroes whose stories are amazing that people don't know nothing about.
Yeah.
In fact, in the exam textbook, we included flight.
Is this the book? Is this your exam textbook?
This is the exam textbook here, yeah, from Pearson. It's used in schools right now. But we included some of these heroes. So Flight Lieutenant John Henry Smythe is in there because he's I could talk about that guy for a whole hour. Have a look, yeah, right. So when people came, they were amazed, impressed, freaking out, interested. They wanted to have more information. We would be there for like sometimes a whole day. We'd have sessions that would start at like 11 o'clock and finish at 3. You know, and they'd still be there after 3 o'clock just chit-chatting because they couldn't believe what they're hearing. But, the other thing we would do, right, is we bring in veterans.
Yes,
We
gosh.
knew people like Alan Wilmot, World War II veteran from Jamaica, 6'4", joined the Air Force, was also in the Navy. This man, apart from being a legend for that, he was also out there knocking out the racists because when the war was on, right, you had 100,000 black Americans over here. So I had 100,000 black Americans in England during the war, right? Now, the American military was a little bit racist in that, you know the story there, right? So what happened is that white American troops would often insult their black American troops, call them the names you can imagine, but they'd make the mistake of calling Alan Wilmot and his crew that same kind of name, right? Now, the thing is, in the American military system, the black troops are subjected to their white racist superiors. So if they fought back, they're going to prison for like 6 months, etc. So these white racist soldiers would then call their black American counterparts all these names. Mr. Wilmot and his gang, his crew rather, would be there, and they would jump in because being they were British under British control, they would not be disciplined the same way. So Alan Wilmot was out there knocking out racists all through the war, right? Man, and he told us these stories, and we're like, wow, we never knew this stuff. We also had a guy, what's his name now? Laurie Philpott. Laurie Philpott is Laurie Philpott, Jamaican guy. We'd have them together. And Laurie Philpott, apart from being in the RAF during World War II, when he left, he got involved in the print industry. So he worked in the print factory, right? You know, doing newspapers and stuff. He would come in at night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, even earlier than that, actually, and work on producing his own black newspaper, right? And sell the newspaper using his military contacts. So this guy was coming into the factory at night, producing a whole black newspaper, and then distributing the newspaper across the nation using his World War II military contacts.
Heavy.
Laurie Philpott, he's in my book actually because the guy, he came and told his stories, and actually we did film them a couple of times, so you can actually see it for yourselves. But these guys were doing all of the work. I mean, apart from doing the thing during the war is over now. They get involved in civil rights. They're fighting for equality. So Mr. Philpott is having this underground newspaper. I'm trying to remember the name of the paper. I think it was called the Colored News or something. But anyway, he'd actually have his own newspaper, which would help to kind of spread information, tell you where is a good place to get a place to stay, hook you up with your colleagues, etc. The guy was doing all this stuff.
Keep you safe, basically.
Yeah. He was doing all that stuff, and then Mr. Wilmot became like a pop star. Mr. Wilmot was like on the equivalent of Stormzy back in 1952. He was a top 10 singing star. So, and that's the stuff I just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I mean,
And this is in this book as well, and it's taught in school. Well, some
Mr.
of it
Wilmot is in this
one,
book.
yeah.
And Laurie Phillip's in this book, and some of the World War II veterans from the Caribbean are in this book as well. But yeah, their stories are. And this is, like I said, volume, because there's so much stories about these. But just World War II, you know, I could do another book on World War II and the Black contribution. But there are lots of the stuff out there. So to answer your question, you couldn't have World War II being won by the British successfully without African Caribbean. It's not possible.
I kind of want to ask. I did want to ask you, but I don't think you'd have the answers. That why didn't they teach this in our education system?
It's a fast answer. And because it's like, if you go to school now, even now, they teach you about Rosa Parks America, Luther King America. They teach you about people outside, because I think in that if you focus on what's over there with those people, you don't so much think about here. Because if you then learn about what I just said there, if you then learn about the fact that people had to fight here for civil rights and did it successfully because we had laws in 65, 68, 76, because of people like Mr. Wilmot and the other guys who were doing their thing, you would have a better understanding of how to actually challenge the system. If you just are taught that racism's over there and you don't really appreciate the struggles your parents went through for you to be here, or the fact that they actually struggled and in fact won because they made these changes to the culture, to the environment, to the law itself. And if you learn that, you can be inspired, infused, educated, so to speak, and you can learn that, use that to then help yourself. But if you don't, if you just think it's an American problem, then it's nothing to do, you're right. It's all those Americans.
Yeah, definitely. I find it interesting, though, that African American history is seen to be dominant in terms of Black history globally. And it doesn't sound like many other people, even our own Caribbeans back home in the Caribbean, don't even know much about Black British history and what we have experienced here. That's quite a shame, to be fair.
Yeah, well, like I say, when it comes to the UK, I think that's quite deliberate because you focus on those people in America, those racist Americans, which means you take the focus off the racist British situation. I mean, like this book is 3 years old, this exam textbook. So for the first time, people are learning about, in the book, N-word hunting because they had a policy or behavior called N-word hunting in London. 50s, 60s, 70s, documented by a guy called Joe Hunt. So Joe Hunt was in
50s, 60s, and 70s, N-word hunting.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the term they'd use. The police would use that term. That's how come Joe Hunt heard about it, because they would say they were going N-word hunting, right? And he'd collect evidence from people who'd been beaten up by the police on the N-word hunts and put into a booklet. So I think the booklet comes out in 68, I think it was. But Joe Hunt was part of a group called the West Indian Standing Conference, and they were set up back in 59, I think it was. No, 58, I think it was actually. And they lasted until like 2008. So they were involved in all the race relations laws, 65, 68, 76, 2000. They're involved in the Scrap Sus campaign. They're involved in everything. So it was like a kind of umbrella group called the West Indian Standing Conference. Joe Hunt was one of the founder members, and it included guys from across the nation who were all kind of in little silos, using their networks to challenge racist behavior in education, housing, employment, the law. They did everything, but people don't know they even existed. They're in my book, but there's a lack of appreciation for what they did for some reason.
What's it like? How is this being received in schools? Because obviously it's very much Black British history. And I can't imagine, it just blows my mind. I wish we had this when I was in school. Like how do they sit an exam on Black British history in GCSEs? How does that work?
Right, let's get into that now, yeah? So listen, yeah, this book comes out, like I say, 3 years ago, and it outsold the initial print run. So it sold more than they thought it would sell.
Gosh.
Cool. That's part of when they oversold. And like I say, right now it's been used by about 15,000 pupils across the nation. So I got invited to go to Norfolk. You know Norfolk? In the bush, by the sea.
Yeah.
It takes 2 trains to get there.
Gosh.
You have to leave there the day before to get to this place in Norfolk. I went to an all-white school, or majority white school actually, to do a session on this book, right? So I did the session with the pupils. It was like, I don't know, 60 kids, whatever. I did it, came home, and then the teacher emailed me the next day to say, Mr. Warner, thank you so much for your presentation. Your presentation kept them occupied for 2.5 hours. Not only that, the parents came to the school the next day. The parents rang the school the next day. The parents emailed the school the next day to say that when their child came home, that child told their parent how good the session was. And I thought, what? In a secondary school?
An all-white school?
It was a majority white school. I mean, it was like 3 Black kids up in there, right? So I was like, what? The pupils, the children, enjoyed the history so much, they told their parents, and the parents were so moved that they told the teacher. How often does that happen in a secondary school?
I don't know. And about Black British history?
It was me. It was all Black stuff, right? It was about Claudia Jones. It was about Sam King. It was about Frank Critchlow, the Mangrove 9. That's what I was chatting about. I was talking about the sus law because all that stuff is in the book.
And the children were interested.
Yeah, they were there. I think the teacher said they were like hanging on the edge of their seats. No, sitting on the edge of the seats. Sorry, sitting on the edge of the streets.
Goodness me.
And that happened also at another school it was a grammar school up in High Wycombe, I think it was. But yeah, that's the reaction that I'm getting. And the teachers tell me they enjoy teaching it because the pupils can relate to it, gauge of it, and they can link what they're reading there to what's called Black Lives Matter now in 2025.
Yeah.
But that was happening here since 50s,
Yeah,
60s,
yeah.
70s, which is called Black Lives Matter at the time, but it's the same sort of principle.
Yeah.
So they found it fascinating, is what I would say.
So how many schools is this in?
Oh, I think it's like 200 or 240. I forget which exactly.
In and around the UK?
Yeah, it's around the country. So, and what Pearson told me last time I spoke is that it's increasing. It's like a very popular book to use.
I've never heard a parent mention or talk about their child learning from this. This is the first time. I mean, I imagine that it's in schools, but I didn't realize to that,
I've not
that
heard
level
of
scale.
parents ring the school to see how good
Goodness
the session was
me,
in
yeah.
general. I was surprised myself.
Because now I've still been, I mean, I home educated my children, do you know what I mean? So it's a very different experience. But all now I'm still cussing about how history isn't taught well in school, but then they have resources like this. So hopefully they're improving.
In that book, the way I wrote my section of the book is that I included, I referenced ancient Africa, Marley Timbuktu, Queen Nzinga of Angola, whatever, Harold Moody. I referenced a whole bunch of stuff that was, because the time frame for this is up to 72, I think it was. I was able to include, because it's me, references to 500 years ago, ancient African civilizations. So I said, when I was doing the text, if I'm going to talk about how history is referenced in the UK, I've got to explain that the people in the Caribbean were not taught about Nanny Runes. They were not taught about Queen Nzinga. They were not taught about Mansa Musa being the richest man in the world. They weren't taught, which means they kind of lost some of their history, or their history was deprived from them, etc. But it's in there, so it's not comprehensive. It includes references to before European colonization, because normally you just get after. But I thought we included some before.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that contribution. That's amazing. You got another book there.
Well, this is a blast from the past.
It kind of jogged a little bit of a memory. I think I've seen.
This is a children's book, right? Well, actually, this one is from the 60s, but this sort of material was being used in libraries, 60s, 70s, 80s, a bit of 90s too, I would expect. And basically, what you're seeing is if you look, you can see the boy's bum, right?
Yes,
so for some reason,
I think that's what really stood out. Can you see it? Will we have to blur out the child's bum in the video?
No, it's a child's book. It's a children's book.
But...
You can put it up.
Yeah?
Right.
Goodness.
So that's the cover. That's the cover already. It's off to a bad start, right? Now, when you look inside the book, let me give you a little quotation, because this is the stuff that maybe I don't know how old you are, right? But I know I had to read this sort of stuff when I was at school.
We kind of got passed down those books when we was not necessarily in school, but yeah they were around. Ladybird books, isn't it?
These are like popular children's books.
Yeah.
These are around the world. Oh, here we go. Look. Let me give you a quote, yeah? Let me read it properly. Yes, John, he was a missionary, a doctor, and a very brave explorer as well. He traveled right through the heart of Africa, the first white man to do so. He made very careful maps, healed the sick, made friends with the Africans who were all savages then, and taught Christianity. He made friends with the Africans who were all savages then and taught Christianity. I mean, this is in the book, Children are reading this book at the age of 5, 6, 7, 10, whatever. And this is in libraries and schools. So that's the kind of legacy that makes me do what I do, because I think this is quite racist. I don't like it. But people have been affected by what they were taught or had to read at that time.
Yeah. And those children then become adults and parents and had their children and passed on the same sort of racist rhetoric. Hey family, we hope you're enjoying the show. If you want to stay up to date with all things Black British Parent, we've got the perfect way for you to do just that. Join our mailing list and be the first to know about new episodes, exciting news, and upcoming events. It's super easy to sign up. Just head over to our website and into your email. Don't miss out on the latest from Black British Parent. Join our community today. Now, back to the show. So you've been using film screenings to educate and I guess in some ways disrupt the status quo.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Why do you think visual storytelling is so powerful for our community?
Visual storytelling is powerful for our community because it's an immediate kind of impact. You watch a picture, you watch a movie, and within those hour, 90 minutes, etc., 2 hours, it gets into your brain directly. It gets to go straight in, right? And it's 2 hours, 90 minutes, etc. It's quick. Whereas with a book now, you got to read the book for like, I don't know, a couple of days, 3 days, 4 days over a period of time. And it takes longer for it to process into your brain. But you watch a movie, that image goes straight to your cortex. It's in there straight away. So whether the image is uplifting, empowering, or negative and stereotypical, it's going to hit you the same way or hit you very directly. So we already know that there's lots of stereotypical images about black people out there. So my idea was to make sure we had a space or spaces to show educational, anti-racist, uplifting films about black people that show them as they actually are, as opposed to how the white media would like to construct them. So we show films all year long, once a month at least, about people like Toussaint Louverture, people like Franz Fanon, people like Nanya Maroons, and also situations. We show films about history, but it's not always like a dry documentary kind of thing. We might show films like about Warwick and Nzinga, who literally fought the Portuguese to a standstill. We'll show films like Bisauro. Oh my goodness, again, it's like a drama. It's all action, but within the film, you got proper history. You got like how spirituality can empower you. You got how you have sellouts who look like you, but they want to please the master. It's all in that one movie, and you can find a lot of really quality, highly produced, well-produced films about the black experience that they have a problem being produced in the first place, but then they have another problem being distributed. So there's some really good films out there that exist, but unless there's some sort of way to convey those films to the nation, to the populace as a whole, you can't see them, right? So they're there, they exist, but you might never heard of them, and therefore you never get to see them. Therefore, you can never be inspired and moved by that film. So, for example, Yuli, about Carlos Acosta, amazing film. Listen, man, look, I said before, right? I'm a big fat old man, but when I saw that film, I want to be a ballet dancer. I was like, yeah, give me a tutu and some ballet shoes, I will go and dance, because it was like it was very impactful on me as a big old man. Far less if you're a little youth there, like, 11, 12, 10, 15, and you see that sort of thing, because he said himself, Carlos Scott said, that he was in ballet school, didn't like it, dad was kind of giving him a hard time, but when he saw someone who looked like him, he thought, boom, that's it, done, I can do this thing.
And that's a mad story, because to see a black man ballet, you wouldn't necessarily put the two like that together.
He's like fantastic. So, yeah, film is really powerful, and the problem is that films like the ones I just mentioned there don't get distributed because of racism.
Yeah.
So to challenge that, we try to make sure we show the films and get people in the cinema to watch them and have a Q&A. Because this is the thing, you might go and watch a really good picture, film, whatever, 2 hours and walk out. Because normally they show a film and that's it, you go and see later.
Yeah.
But we make sure to have a Q&A afterwards to add to the value, to explain, to explore, and then decide, well, in the film you just watched there, which was true, which was false, was it just, what do you call it, dramatic license, etc. So it's a really important part of our film experience that we have a Q&A with professionals who are experts in their field to kind of, ground the film and give you more information you get just from watching the film and then going home. Yeah. And that's what we've been doing for for me now, it's actually 25 years.
Yeah, that's what I say, it's 25 years. Yeah. That's a long time. The previous question I asked you about like the pushback that you get and
oh yeah, that's a good example.
Well, I was gonna say, like, you having an experience right now.
So the BFI stands for the British Film Institute. They're based in the South Bank. We have been working with them since 2007, as volunteers. So all of our expertise, contacts, advertising, promotion is done for free. Normally, you pay to access someone's email, their email list, whatever, to advertise, but we do it all for free. So we consult on the films, design the program, we bring in the experts, because you know who the experts are to discuss the actual film. We say what cinemas to show in, because some films are going to bring in 400 people, other films will bring in 100 people. So we kind of decide what to do with that. And we've been doing that since 2007, packing out the cinema yearly, regular basis with a majority black crowd. Also some white people too, right? Because sometimes you have a 50-50 split. So we've been doing that for 17 years, and all of a sudden now the BFI wants to cancel the program to get rid of the guy who set it up with his 17 years of experience of organizing black film, and delete his post. So you got two. One thing would be bad enough, but they got two together. So they want to get rid of the guy with the 17 years of programming films I've packed out of 460 them at 2 p.m. on afternoon, Saturday afternoon, which is remarkable because 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon is a dead time in cinemas. You go to any cinema, even if it's Spider-Man, Avengers, whatever, 2 o'clock, it's not full of 450 people. It's not full of all them people, right?
Yeah.
We made it happen, right? And also, they want to get rid of the actual position because the job requires about 48 weeks of work to produce the monthly films, right? And they said they want to get rid of the guy and delete the job as well. And we said this is ridiculous because if you do that, that's the end of the program because it cannot continue without these kind of resources, either the human expertise or the fact that you have a 48-week job role. And they said, oh, well, you know, it won't end. And I said, well, how can you prove it's not going to end? And they said, well, we're not quite sure, but things will change. And they never got back to us. They never actually said how it could continue with these massive, stringent cuts. So we then asked them, well, okay, you're saying you need to end the program to promote diversity and cut costs. Now, this is a black program that has died, because that place, the BFI, used to be a white middle-class enclave where even people like Mehmet Shabazz couldn't get his film shown. So Mehmet Shabazz is one of the best directors we ever had. He could not get his film shown there until we got involved, right? So that one, to promote diversity, sounds ridiculous, is ridiculous. But then they said to cut costs, and we're thinking, we work for you for free. So how is that cutting costs?
Yeah.
We brought in at least, at the very minimum, £1.5 million of work to you. We've given you that kind of money. We brought in that kind of level of cash to you, right? And on top of that, the people who are in the cinema are paying to be in the cinema. And it's like, if you have 400 people paying £10 each, that's $4,000 that we've curated for you that you get.
During a time when you weren't bringing no one in at 2 o'clock. So what are you talking about?
So how can you tell us about cutting costs? And they couldn't even tell us what the budget was. We even asked them for 8 months. Okay, you want to cut costs? What's the budget then? Tell us what the budget is, because we'll see what we can do. They refused to tell us what the budget is. Meanwhile, we know they have money because they're spending money on other things that we can see that they're spending money on, right? So we also said to them, listen, you should do a race equality impact assessment to assess the damage this would do, because we said to them, this would be catastrophic if you do it. And basically, race equality impact assessment is when you check to see the impact of the decision making. And this comes out of the race equality laws you had here, in that people lobbied for the Act of 76, 2000, 2010, and the 2010 goes into what's something called the public sector equality duty, whereby you have a duty as a taxpayer-funded body to assess, to check, to make sure the decisions your majority white group of execs makes, because the BFI has an 88% white structure of management. So at the top, executive level, 88% white, right? But they tell me about diversity. Anyway, so it's 88% white, and we said, look, you need to do this REIA to see how it's going to impact. And they refused to do it. And we're thinking, well, this doesn't make any sense, because if you're going to do it, at least check to see if it's going to impact you before.
But they don't care, clearly.
Well, clearly they don't care. And then we said, okay, let's have a petitioner, because I forgot to say is that they refused to talk to us for like 3 months. So we're in discussions with them about this situation.
This is still happening right now. Well,
this was happening last year when they said they didn't want to talk to us for 3 months. I'm like, well, why are we not? Because we're volunteers helping you out. Why would you not want to speak to us? Anyway, they didn't want to speak for 3 months. So in that 3 months time, we said, let's set up a petition. The petition now is at 16,000 people, or 16,200 people to be precise, and they've ignored that. They've not even engaged with the fact that 16,200 people want the program to continue, who want to come and watch these films. They've not even addressed the issue at all. They've not even talked about it, and they've never met us to discuss the fact we have 16,000 people saying, look, let's keep this thing going. Let's find a way to keep it going.
That's crazy.
It's like a science fiction movie, because the decisions don't make any sense.
No, I want to ask you why they do this, but you don't know other than the obvious reason.
RACISM. Racism.
I'm asking a stupid question. Is it as simple as that, really?
All right, well, let's put it this way,
You know why I would say that? Because there's people that are like, it's not everything is racist.
Okay,
How can you
be
guarantee sure that
you're a business owner? You have 450 people coming to your cinema, giving you money each time. The people who are bringing them to you do not charge for their services.
Gosh.
How can you tell them people that you're going to end it to cut costs when you're making money from the program? How can you be then saying also, we are an anti-racist organization, but then refuse to do a race equality impact assessment, which would prove you're not racist, right? If you did it, right? How can you then, how can you kind of square this circle? It makes no sense. How can you then say to the people who are responsible for bringing 16,000 signatures that you don't even want to talk to them or meet them, because they were actually supposed to meet us on the 17th of January this year. 2 hours before the meet, they canceled it unilaterally, right? They canceled it, not us. They said no, right? And we're like, because we were actually there waiting to get into the Zoom. It was going to be a Zoom meeting. We're all looking forward to it, or I should say,
A Zoom meeting, not even in person.
And it was 2 hours. So the meeting was at 12. They got to us at 10 and sent an email at 10 saying we're not going to do it. I mean, what can you say?
No reason. No.
The reason they gave was it was a rubbish reason. They were trying to. That's right. They were trying to impose a facilitator at the last minute. They tried to change the agenda at the last minute. So the night before, we get emails saying, "Oh, this is the agenda." Now, the agenda, if it was a 6-point agenda, didn't mention the petition. So I'm like, how are we going to have a meeting about the situation and not mention the petition? It wasn't even on the agenda that they had wanted to impose on us. And then they said they need to have a facilitator. We said, what facilitator? Because we've met them before without any facilitator. So why would you need one now? And then the day, like 2 hours before, they said, right, it's not going to happen. And here's the thing that we all thought was very perverse, in that, let's say you had XYZ reason to not go ahead with the meeting at 12 o'clock. Why not stick around for 2 hours to just tell us to our face and have a debate with us as adults, as managers, as responsible, respectful people? Why email us 2 hours before to say it's not going to head? And then, because we were actually there trying to get into the Zoom, thinking maybe there's some technical problem. Yeah. And then we checked
the email, and that's when you realize that's wild.
We were like, how? And they're supposed to be professionals, professional people on like 90 grand a year, and you can't have the decency to actually go through the meeting. Even if you want it to end and not have it, at least explain to people why it shouldn't go ahead. They just sent an email and walked off. So yeah, that's the situation.
What was the name of that project?
The film program is called the African Odysseys program. 17 years, a success by every level of performance. Yeah. Either numbers or money, or because the other thing is that we've been bringing in African Caribbean directors that would never have got a shot there but for the African Odysseys program. So for 7 years, we're bringing in films there produced by artists who, on the whole, would be ignored, sidelined, but never get a chance to produce their work in front of such a big audience.
Yeah, and you brought people from all over the world in as well. Yeah.
Brazil, Cuba, Venezuela. I mean, we just did a film on Claude McKay. Claude McKay is a black man who's been quoted by Winston Churchill. This guy, Claude McKay, is a legend. We did stuff on Mugabe just the other day, sold out. So the stuff that we do sells out, and it's educational, impactful, has a massive audience, because there's no other a strand of diversity at the BFI that has a 16,000 strong petition saying we want to see these films. So why would you end the program? Like I say,
if anybody wanted to help or support in some kind of way, what would you suggest that they do?
Number one, they can sign a petition, because
we'll have the link in the caption after this.
Absolutely, sign a petition. Tell all their friends too, and ask them to write to the BFI and say, why have you done what you're doing? What is going on here? We want to see these films produced by African Odysseys, bring them back, because they've kind of literally ended the program, but actually they're trying to say that's just on pause. Meanwhile, they have refused to speak to us. So what they're saying doesn't make any sense. Really, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, they can sign a petition, share the petition, and come to our events, because we'll be doing events for the rest of our lives, basically, to provide the community with this resource. Because I forgot to mention that apart from just like you're showing films, you're exposing new artists, actors, directors, you're giving them a platform they would never have but for this program. The venue itself became like a social gathering, meeting place, community center, etc., at the BFI. I know guys who've been there, come there and got married. So they've come there, met some, got married, have 3 kids, etc. Because of the space we created at that location.
A community village type space.
It was. People would look forward to going there. Because initially people didn't even know where it was. We had to put people outside in the South Bank saying, And if you see any black people looking lost, send them this direction because
Yeah.
people had no clue where the place was.
Very few times we've attended it, the first time was just a phenomenal experience to be able to sit and be in this space full of people that we don't know, and it just felt so welcoming. It just felt so vibrant and so empowering and so safe. So I can attest to that.
And we made that happen, you know. What did you come to watch during that time?
I can't remember. It was a while ago. But at that time, I think you said it. What you said? What it was when we was talking offline?
Marcus Garvey, Pissarro.
No, I think it's about black women. I think.
Black women, we've done a lot of stuff in black
Yeah,
women.
I know.
Loads, man. I mean, shoot.
I can't remember. You said it earlier, but I can't remember.
And things apart from in the films, we'd also have like workshops because they have a room upstairs that can hold about 100 people, and it's got a small screen. We can do a workshop session there. So we bring in people like Flight Lieutenant John A. Smythe's son. He'd do a talk there. Bring in people like Professor Gus John. He'd do a talk there. Bring in a woman who worked with Prince. I mean, to talk about her experience of working with Prince. We'd have all these kind of really unique, unusual events there, which, again, were not happening no place else at the BFI. And I forgot to mention too, is like, when you have 400 people come to a place, they're also they're paying for their ticket, but also they're going to have a drink. They're going to buy a biscuit.
Snacks
They're going to buy a
and
snack.
beverages
So
and stuff.
we are literally putting money into the pockets of the BFI, and the BFI is treating them with total disrespect.
Yeah.
Because they won't even discuss the issue, address the issue, do what they should be doing according to the law and policy, and then lie about what they're doing to the general public.
That's kind of wild because you in situations like that where if they were a monetary exchange of some sort with yourselves, which there isn't in this case, you'd think that oftentimes they try to eradicate that person and try and do it for themselves so they can make, even in this instance, that wouldn't even make sense because they're not losing anything by working with you guys. I don't understand.
No, it's bizarre. And like I say, you can only make sense of it if you see it as a racist behavior, which it is.
Yeah. Or unless you agree with their perspective, then it will make sense. Yeah. I hear it. That's wild.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, in general, cinema audiences are going down. It's a known fact.
Yes,
Since the
because
pandemic,
of digital films and all that kind of streaming sites and all of that.
some cinemas have actually closed because the audience has gone down. So we're now bringing people into a cinema, and there's a situation where cinemas are closing down, but you don't want that audience because you want to do what you want to do.
That's crazy.
It's a madness. Crazy.
Speaking of crazy madness, many of us don't fully connect historical trauma with what we're seeing in our families and young people today. What's your take on how history and healing are linked?
Ooh, I think history can heal. Literally, let me have an example. I have a kind of example. It's kind of linking to healing, I suppose, because there's a mother and a son who would come to my events at the War Museum for a long time. So she'd bring her son to the War Museum stuff, and I'd talk about World War II, right? Now, I forget her son's name. It'll come back to me later. But anyway, so her son's at school, right? A month later on. And some white boy is saying, you black so-and-so, you lot didn't do nothing during World War II. So he's getting racially abused and told that he has done nothing for the country during World War II. Now, the little black boy who'd been coming to my events, right, then sat that white boy down and said, listen, white boy, we were getting oil from Trinidad. The British were getting oil from Trinidad. We were getting gold diamonds from Africa. We had the regiment from... He gave them the whole rundown of the black history I taught him in the War Museum, right? He remembered all this stuff, and the white boy was just... And they became friends. That's true. It's a true story, right? Oh, what's her name? Her name is...
No names.
Right. But she's alive. She's actually in the book.
Oh, sorry. The person that you're talking about in the history. Yeah, you can say the name. I thought you meant the child or family's name.
Justine is her first name. I forget her last name now, but she's a librarian up in North London, and she told me the story. That's commenced in the book.
Gosh.
And that's just one of many stories that, have happened, because I don't always understand or realize the impact the history I've shared has had on people. But sometimes they'll come back and tell me. So that's stories to cut, which is why I put it in the book. But that sort of thing happens on a massive level that I don't even know about. Because if you have 400 people in the cinema, you're not going to hear from all of them. But
Yeah, of course.
I guarantee
But
you
everyone's
they're
had
going
an
home
impact,
and they're doing something to do with this stuff.
100%. So you've been doing this work for over 2 decades. What kind of legacy do you hope to leave for future generations?
What kind of legacy do you want to leave for future generations? Well, I've got my 2 books out so far. Hopefully I'll have 2 more shortly. I've got about 10 plaques so far that have, literally the history on them. Even the verbal stuff I've been doing has had an impact. And because, as I said just now, people actually come and tell me that, they learned this when they did that. In fact, there's another woman who came to the African Odysseys program back in 2008, 9, whatever, and she listened to a guy called Jim Pines. Jim Pines was, doing this stuff before I was even born, right? So Jim Pines taught her on a kind of, it's like a 12-week course, and that 12-week course made this woman go and do like a master's degree in film and history. Wow. So master's degree in film and history, and she attributes that. She told me this like a month ago that she would not have done that but for coming to the African Odysseys and having that course taught by Jim Pines. And now she's an academic in a university in South London. She's like up there. And she literally says that she can find her origins of that academic success in coming to the BFI African Odysseys program. And
Goodness.
So yeah, that's a legacy right there. And I didn't know until like a month ago, She just told me the other day.
And they're looking to scrap that same legacy that influenced such academic
and
influences.
And I also know that there's a couple of actors who like 10 years ago were like kind of, struggling to get through. And now the same actors are kind of working on like with Netflix and Hollywood programs. I know that for a fact that some of these actors are just blown up. And directors too, because like I said, sometimes it's hard for directors to get their film shown. Once people can see the film, they'll then say, okay, I want to book you to do this screening in this area. We know that's happened. We actually need to do a whole kind of assessment, but we know that's happened for a number of years, and they're guys who are big now who kicked off of African Odysseys. So,
Goodness me. Thank you so much for all of that. That's just amazing to hear. So what would you say to a young person who wants to do what you do, tell truth, build platforms, and shake the table?
What would I tell a young person? I'd tell them to come, or her to come on all my walks, innit? That's what I'd say, first of all. Come to the events, come to the film shows, the river cruise, whatever. Because I should say that, sometimes what we do is we give out free tickets, to our stuff, right? Especially to youth groups. So when we show Black Panther, remember when Black Panther came out? Right. So this is really weird because we had asked the BFI to show Black Panther. This is like after 13 years of doing the stuff or whatever. We said, BFI, listen, this film's coming out, Black Panther, we want to show at your place, right? And they told me no. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. Why would he tell me no?
Marvel film as well.
So we told them twice, let's show it BFI, and they told me no twice. I couldn't understand that. Anyhow, it's not like they're the only cinema in the country. So I went to a place called Genesis, which is in East London, a cinema down there. And we negotiated to have free screenings of the Black Panther at Genesis.
I think we went to one of them, yeah.
Did you come?
Yeah.
Because we had like 2,000 people up in that place.
Yeah, and it was a mad queue going in. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, 2,000 people.
I didn't realize it was you guys, but I got a ticket. So I knew it was because I think that cinema was kind of black owned or something. It got connections with black. No, was it not?
Not black owned as far as I'm aware. No.
Okay, maybe it was the wrong.
Right. But Genesis East London, free shows in one day plus a Q&A. Dr. Les Henry, Professor Les Henry, Professor Amabani, Terry Jervis, and a guy from Kugali, which is a black comics creator, right? So 2,000 people. So let's say they spent £10 each way, but that's 20 grand.
Yeah.
That the Genesis cinema got, that could have gone to BFI if they were thinking properly. And apart from that, the people who came to that just loved it. I don't know if it was the one you're talking about. If you saw it with us, then you know the environment, the kind of the theme, the vibe that was going on. It was a madness. Yeah. It was people loved it. Remember, we had a bodybuilder dressed in. Remember, it was us.
Yeah, it was you.
It was me. Well, it wasn't me.
You would know, but
it was our organization that did it. So that guy, I forget his name, but he had been painted black by a friend of ours. Forget her name as well for the moment. But yeah, it was a fantastic, wonderful event. And literally, that sort of thing we've been doing at the BFI for 17 years, but they're not interested. So, the event itself, fantastic. And I suppose that is my legacy, that sort of feeling and remembrance, because people love the film, love the vibe, love the Q&A, and, you know, just
It was
walking
awesome.
out.
Yeah,
It was,
yeah. And maybe I didn't think it was a black-owned cinema. Maybe the project was put on by black,
It
which
was.
was yourselves.
It
Yeah,
was
so
me.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably what it was. That was awesome. It was a brilliant day, I think. I remember my son was so happy because he loved Black Panther and he got to take a picture with the Black Panther as well.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
And I
it
think
was-
that's right. You see,
yeah.
I forgot the free tickets thing is because we gave the East Side and West Side Young Leaders Academy,
yeah.
like 20 tickets to come for free.
Heavy.
We did the boat trip a few times. We gave them 20 tickets. So we will try and give out free tickets to youth groups to kind of come along so they can get the history. You know, we do it all the time.
Wicked. I love to hear that. Thank you so much. So is there any other projects or any other direction you're currently working on that we'd be excited to hear about?
Yeah.
I want to share with us.
We got helicopter tours, we got canal cruises, we got river cruises. We're now working on a steam train Black History trip. You know, like you have a thing called the Orient Express?
Yes.
We're going to have a Caribbean Express,
Wicked.
Caribbean Express,
Tell me
yeah.
Caribbean food on
And
there.
it's going to, yeah, we might get a patty maybe at least, right? And we're going to go from Waterloo to the coast and back and stop off and have a little kind of excursion there. So it's going to be, well, unique. It's never been done before. We're planning now for the summer months. Got to find the exact date soon, but that's something we're working on. Working on a couple of new plaques to go up in. Oh, we got one confirmed for a woman called. Oh, you should. Yeah, listen. There's a sister called Dr. Beryl Gilroy.
Mm-hmm.
She was a black head teacher in Camden.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a book called Black Teacher, groundbreaking.
I think yeah. I
see,
thought I
right?
recognized the name, but I wasn't sure.
She was a real. She also co-founded Camden Black Sisters. She
yes.
literally pioneered multicultural education. She did everything, right? So we've confirmed a plaque to go up to her on I think it's the 1st of June. That's gonna be a big deal because there's never been one before. She deserved to have one, but it's not been done before. We're gonna make it happen. And don't forget, like talking about, listen, right? She homeschooled her children. Who are her children? Her children are Professor Darla Gilroy, who's the dean or a dean at Central School St. Martin's of Art, right, in King's Cross there. Her other child is some guy called Professor Paul Gilroy, who is like a legend when it comes to, you know, history. He's got awards going out there. He's like, those are her kids. And she homeschooled them. And that was back in like the 60s, you know?
That's inspiring. Yeah, it's heavy.
And we want to tell this story and get it out there so people really understand what she did herself.
Yeah.
And the legacy of her children, who are both professors at top level.
Heavy.
And she's going to get a plaque now. She should have had one like ages ago, but we're going to make sure it happens first.
I'm definitely going to get. But I came across it when I was studying that kind of. But I didn't realize she homeschooled, so home educator.
You know what I'm
so
saying? It's like, and that's the thing, right? If you knew, it's like more power to you because look at what her kids are professors. Like Professor Paul Gilroy is like, you know, the daddy when it comes to this sort of, you know, history, intellectual kind of pursuits or political debate, etc. He's like up there, and he comes from a homeschooling background, and people don't know.
That's amazing. Yeah, and people should know. We need to know these things. Tony, thank you so much for sharing space and time with us. I really appreciate it. Please, before you go, do you have a message for our Black British parent listeners?
I said check out my website, which is blackhistorywalks.co.uk. Twitter, Instagram, usual sort of things. Follow us on, sign up to the newsletter. So the newsletter, I just got a website and click on it and sign up to it because the media is is racist too, right? So when it comes to Instagram, Facebook, you know, there's oppression on those digital spaces. So there's a hard time there. So if you want to get information, make sure you go to the source, sign up to the newsletter, follow our stuff, and come to our events because that's how you got it. Oh, no, actually, you know what? Just do word of mouth. If you can't sign up to the newsletter, just tell a friend verbally. Because back in the day, when Darkest Hour was organizing the 20,000 people, Black People's Day of Action in March 81, they didn't have no damn WhatsApp or Google, whatever. It was all word of mouth and flyers. And I think that we might have to do that in the future because to get back to that word of mouth, flyers, 100%. Telephone tree, but you know, you have to do more. You can't just be sitting back.
Get involved in your communities as well.
That's what I say. Get involved.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. Until next time, take care.